know you've discussed the Kittle thing, said he'd be playing if he could. Is that just you guys are just using a lot of caution with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he also has something. I mean, if he's 100%, he would be going, but it's not something we're very concerned about. Doing the travel and the short week and stuff. I know we could push it today, but it's still bothering him a little bit, so we are being cautious.
So McKinnon is practicing today?
No,
Okay.
no, he's not.
Ward is?
All those, yeah, Jimmy Ward is.
What kind of extent is he doing? Is he in team drills now, or is he still just?
He's in team drills. He's allowed contact now, and we expect him to play this week.
Do you expect Kittle to play this week?
With him not practicing today, I'd be surprised if he does. Haven't decided that yet, though.
You said the other day that you wouldn't decide on the backup quarterback decision until the 53-man roster is decided.
Yeah.
People interpreted that okay, that means that you're going to keep two. Have you decided 2 or 3 at this point, or is that
No,
part of
no,
it?
I haven't really. I know there's 3 guys I'd like to keep, but that has to do with D linemen, receivers, running backs, safeties, everybody. So that's why you don't decide till the 53.
What kind of impression you get from Jimmy about going back to Kansas City, and whether just like any mental catharsis he can gain from going back there and getting through it?
I don't know that word you just said, but
Went to Cal Poly.
I went to some good schools too, but I just went to football practice, not school. No, I haven't talked to him specifically about Kansas City. I know last week was his first time with the possibility to get tackled. He didn't. He's going to play more this week, so I know just anytime you come back from an injury, there's a bunch of mental hurdles you got to get over, even when you are healthy and feel good. I'm sure there's some stuff with it just being eerie, if that's the only word I could use there, going back to that same place, but I haven't talked to him about that specifically.
What was after when you're doing the film review of his 10, 11 snaps, whatever it was he? Was there a lot to go over, or was it like, was he encouraging, or was he down in the dumps?
Yeah, I mean, there was one play to go over. The miscommunication on the protections that starts usually with the quarterback, changing the protection. You got to make sure everyone gets it. And then when we don't have guys blocked because of miscommunication, that you don't throw it to their team. Worst case scenario, you just go down and take a sack. Besides the other ones, you can talk about tip throws and things like that. 41 driving on that one play that we had. And you talk about the throw, you also talk about the route. But no, the main thing was just the one interception.
When you talk about mental hurdles, do you feel that was part of the issue last week?
Possibly. I mean, I think that is for everyone when you get out there. I think guys everyone's amped up for playing these games, whether it's just a normal NFL game, a normal preseason game, whether it's first game of the year or whether it's your first game back from injury. You like to get guys some things to get a quarterback in rhythm, an entire offense in rhythm, and we didn't do that. And I truly believe if we would have stayed in there, it would have been a matter of time. It's just really hard in the preseason when you have 3 bad drives like that, and they want to stay in longer, and every part of my body wants to keep them in longer, but you got to make the smart decision and get them out.
Are you going to kind of go with what you did last year and have him play through the first half and maybe a series in the second half, or with the willingness to pull him out whenever you want?
No, I mean, I would like them to get a whole half in. But sometimes halves can be 20 plays, sometimes they can be 45. So it's more about the play count, but you'd like them to get a normal half in. And if they do, depending on how you start with the ball, how many series you get, if you feel good about it, we'd like to not put them back out in the third quarter. But if you don't feel good and you don't feel like they got the reps, that's always an option.
Is it about play count, or is it about qualitatively sort of what you see from him?
It's both. From a quarterback standpoint, it would be great for Jimmy to leave him in all games and let him do this and go through reps. Even not coming back from an injury, just missing last year, except for the 2.5 games, and then not playing much before that. That's all Jimmy needs is just to play football, whether he was coming back from an injury or not. We thought we were going to get that last year, and unfortunately we didn't, and that was out of everyone's control. So now we're back to that, and plus he's coming off an injury with it. So I want Jimmy to play as much as possible in the preseason and into the regular season, but that's a fine line too. Joe Staley's not in the same situation. Neither is McGlinchey right now, our whole line, and that you don't want to put your quarterback in there for starting defensive line when you don't have your starting O-line in there. So trying to balance that out.
Are there things Najee Toran could have done to prevent the defensive tackle from knocking those 2 passes down?
I think it's hard. I'd like to say yes, but it ends up being a little bit coach talk. Sometimes when you have guys who do not rush at all, that's one of the problems. It's nice because they don't sack you, but it is very tough for a quarterback. The guy was right in the window. I mean, Najee, we look at everything hard. If he eased up or anything at all, we'd say that. If Jimmy was bad with his eyes or anything at all, we'd say that. But you look into both of that, and sometimes when those guys do as much as they can, that's a problem with tip balls.
Seemed like he kind of had just like the week from hell, like anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And that's happened to players before. It happened to Matt Shaw where he threw a bunch of pick sixes in a row.
Yeah.
How does a player get over that and move on? And what's the key to getting over such a bad streak?
That's, to me, what's the hardest thing about our business. That's what's the hardest thing about the position. I think I kind of talk about it a lot. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of ability to get into the club of being an NFL quarterback. But there's a lot of guys in the NFL who do have that ability. And once you can get in that club, then it's all about the stuff you're just mentioning. How can you handle that pressure week in and week out? How can you play in the game when you're in the pocket and things are moving? When you're very clear-minded and everything's going right and you have that ability, it's not too tough. But I promise you, no matter who you are as a quarterback especially, you will go through rough patches. And everyone will come down on you, whether it's your fault or not. And it doesn't matter. You got to deal with it. And that's the challenge of this position. That's why I got a lot of respect for this position. And that's something that Jimmy's been through a little of it, but not as much as a guy in a second contract or a guy that's been around or that people in this league have respect for. He hasn't played a ton. And that's what was one of the most discouraging things about last year, because he was going to get that regardless of how the season went. We got a better team now. A lot more excited for this year. But I also, in defense of Jimmy, he hasn't played a lot. When he has played, everyone has seen his ability, and everyone knows he's in that club, and everyone knows he's not only have the ability to be in the NFL, he's got the ability to be one of the better ones. But we got to go through those ups and downs, and it's not going to be, is he good enough to do it? We all know he's good enough to do it. It's going to be how he reacts to that and how we help him with that, and that is what no one can account for what these guys go through in this league at that position.
Even though it's preseason, there's still, a lot of noise about Jimmy, a lot of, you probably don't want to listen to sports talk radio, but if you turned it on, I'm just wondering, do you think he's not really been in a position where he's been criticized? It's been, like you said, he hasn't played enough. When he did play, it's gone well. Do you think he can shut that stuff out, or do you know what his mindset is?
Yeah, he has the ability to do it. Jimmy's not a guy who is out all the time and really wanting to read about himself. He's a very humble guy and has the right personality, but he's also a human too. I had success my first couple of years in Houston as a coordinator, and I was real young, and I just thought everything was easy, and why does anyone get stressed out? And then I go to Washington, and I wasn't as good anymore. And I accidentally read a paper one day, and it told me how bad I was, and that was my first job ever, and I only got it because of my dad. And I'd like to say that didn't mess me up, but it did for a little bit. And that is human nature. And you start to learn that stuff, and you realize, holy cow, that can affect you. And I'm not going to read that ever again. And I'm also not going to read it when it tells me how good I am, because if it tells me how good I am, then that makes me feel a lot better about myself. Then I'm going to feel that much worse when it tells me how bad I am. You do the best you can every week. It's a hard league. And just because you don't have success one week, it does not mean you're not good. This is week in and week out. It changes every week. And the strong people survive in this league. You have to have talent. You got to be a special person. You got to be a special coach, a special player, whatever it is. You got to be a little bit different. But it's not easy, and you got to work through that.
How can your wideouts help your quarterback in that way? And also, what can they do as a group, as a unit, to help you further evaluate them?
The more, we do have a young group. We got our veterans in here, our second and third year players. We brought Jordan in, who's our biggest veteran, but after that, Trent Taylor was, and he hasn't been out, but we've missed his veteran presence here in the last couple weeks, even though he's only a third year player. So when you got a young quarterback like this and you got some young wideouts, the more on it they can be, the more it takes pressure off our quarterback. And so forth through everyone, the O-line, the tight end. The more on it the quarterback can be, the less pressure the wideouts are on, the more they can help them out. But we need a lot of guys to step it up so you take that pressure off guys, because we do have ability, I believe, at all positions. And now it's about execution, which you guys hear a lot. Execution is about being confident and just playing with a very clear mind and not having to think about a split, a route adjustment, a protection. It's just automatic. And we got guys who are intelligent, who it is automatic in the classroom, But that's about putting them out in the heat of the battle. It gets a lot harder in games. It's a lot harder on the practice field. That's what is good about some of these preseason games. When there aren't guys, when you know guys can handle and stuff and it's not too big, there isn't as much for preseason games. That's why I said it earlier. I would prefer 2 of them. Don't want 4. But that is some of the stuff you're trying to figure out in games, and you expect these guys to make mistakes. And when that does happen and you can see it and they can see it, then it can be good because they can learn from it before it actually counts.
Are you looking more at the physical or the mental?
Both. Some guys it's more mental, some guys it's more physical. I mean, we got all different types in our wide receivers, which is really cool. We got some guys who need to understand and get more confident in the physical part of the game. And then we got some guys who have no issue with the physical part of the game. They got to be able to chill out a little bit and quit trying to kill people and execute. So it's always like this, and it's trying to get that perfect balance. And we got all types of guys. We don't have one type of guy, so it's a different answer for each player.
It feels like, I mean, we're treating it, I guess, outside of this building, everyone's treating Saturday's game like there are pretty elevated stakes. Do you feel the same way? Are there for a preseason game?
It's elevated stakes if your goal is the day after the game to make sure people talk good about you. So, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to be as good as we can for Tampa. So if your world and why you play this sport has to do with pleasing talk shows and making sure everyone says you're good, even though that doesn't mean you are, then yeah, it probably is. But that's why I really hope our guys are stronger than that. It's not. I hope our guys go out and focus on just doing the best they can, trying to execute. We'll see how the game comes to us. And then don't let someone tell you something that freaks you out. All you can do is work and be the best you can. And we got guys with the ability in here. I hope the game goes perfect. But I also know if it does and everyone tells us how good we are, that doesn't mean anything. I've been 4-0 in the preseason and had everyone love us, and I've started 0-4 after that. They don't remember that. I've gotten 0-4 in the preseason and then won our first game, and they forget very quick. So that's just, I think it's easier with experience that you realize that, what matters and what doesn't. All that matters is that you play the best you can and you have a clear mind, and I'm glad that we're going to get more playing time this week to go through that and train ourselves for when it does matter.
Are there a couple under the radar players that did really well the first 2 exhibitions that you want to see how they do?
Yes, we got a number of guys here. This is different than every other year we've had, to where getting down to this final 53 is going to be a lot more stressful for John and I than it has in the past. Usually you're excited to a little bit more because we already know who it is, and we're hoping, and we think there's 5 guys on someone else's roster that can add to our 53. We know we got more than 53 players now. And we also got a lot of guys out too, but they're guys that we think are going to return here in the first couple weeks. So that makes some very tough decisions on the final 3. The first day is 46, and there's going to be a player that we want to keep, without a doubt, that won't be able to be on our team this year. So it's tough, it's stressful, but that was our goal. I'm glad that we're here at this point, and I hope that continues.
How was Garnett able to practice yesterday, and will he play on Saturday?
Yesterday, we didn't have pads on. We only had 2 live periods without pads. He's got a cast on his hand, so he was able to go out there and protect himself. Today we'll have pads on, so we'll be able to see a little bit more. I'd like to get him in the game. We haven't decided yet, though. So depending on how much he goes will affect how much he goes the next week versus the Chargers.
Is Jordan Matthews only getting a handful of snaps with the starters on offense? Is that an indication that you've been pretty happy with what you've seen from him?
It's an indication that we feel very good about. We know what Jordan is, and Jordan's had a hell of a camp. I mean, he's done very good in practice. He's been consistent in OTAs. He's been very consistent in training camp, and we've seen him a lot on tape before he got here. And I got a lot of confidence in Jordan, and I know we can win with Jordan. Trying to find out a little bit more about other guys that we don't know as well, and you got to give those guys that opportunity. Now, I did wish he played a little bit more versus Denver. We were going to have him going at F, and then switch in later with Hurd. Then Hurd ended up having back tightness. We ended up giving Richie those opportunities, but that says nothing about Jordan. We know what Jordan can do, and we're trying to find out what more of these other guys can do.
Is he taking most of his reps at F?
What's that?
Is he taking most of his reps at F or at Z as well, Jordan?
Last week he took most at F. I think the week before at Z. He goes back and forth.
Did you catch this qualitatively when he said that?
That was awesome. You're great. Thanks, guys.
Jimmy, going back to Kansas City, just what can that do for you mentally to kind of get going in the comeback?
It'll be a good stepping stone. Definitely, it would be a little weird getting back there, but just trying to treat it like a normal game.
Have you flashed back to that moment a lot over these last 11 months?
Initially after it happened, I mean, you try to replay it all in your head and what you do differently and everything like that, and just really everything that goes into it. So it's come up a couple times, but I think I'm past that at this point.
Jimmy, when you watch the tape from last week, what'd you see? I know it's just a few snaps.
Yeah, just little details here and there. Just got to be sharper with those things, starting with myself, and I think it'll help our offense going forward.
What were those joint practices like? It seemed like a sort of a night and day difference between what you did against the Broncos the Friday and Saturday versus the Monday.
Yeah, well, obviously, preseason and everything, so you're not truly game planning and everything, but I thought the practices went really well. We moved the ball pretty frequently, and it was we got into a good rhythm offensively, and I just felt like in the game we couldn't get into that rhythm. So I thought that was a big difference.
It seemed like you had a week from hell last week, started with Wednesday, where anything that could go wrong did go wrong. Have you ever experienced anything like that as an athlete, and what do you do to just move on and maintain confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's happened at some point throughout my football career. That's football, though. It's going to be ups and downs, and as a quarterback, you just try to stay right in the middle the whole time and kind of just, do what you do over and over, and, the results will take care of themselves.
Kyle was talking about mental hurdles. Do you feel you had some mental hurdles to overcome last week?
I think it was good for me to get out there for sure. Just it's been almost a year or so, and I think naturally you try to block those things out, but naturally I think they just come, and so I think it was a good stepping stone last week, getting out on the field, live bullets flying and all that stuff.
How much do you look forward to getting an extended run where you can have a chance to kind of get into a rhythm this week?
Oh, it'll be good. Yeah, it's hopefully we could string some plays together, get some good drives and everything, and get the offense moving. So it's just it's taking it from the practice field and bringing it over to the game field and making it happen.
It's only preseason, but there's been a lot of noise around your outing last week, and I'm wondering, do you hear any of that? Do you shut it out? You haven't really, in your career, had too much criticism, and I'm just wondering, what's your reaction to that? Are you able to shut your ears?
Yeah, it's just throughout my entire football career, there's always going to be that noise and everything, but you just have to block it out. I think we have so much going on in our meetings and in the locker room, and you're just trying to take all that in. And if you start worrying about the outside noise, you got no chance of being successful. So I think it's just staying mentally strong and just doing what we do.
I mean, most guys that are in this league consider themselves their own worst critics. Do you beat yourself up after something like that, or do you just look at it from a more analytical point of view? How do you deal with situations like that?
I'm very hard on myself, especially that night watching the film, the next day watching the film, and then at some point you have to move on and try to you're still trying to correct those mistakes and not make the same mistakes twice. But if you just dwell on the past and dwell on that one game, you're going to get stuck there and you can have no success going forward. So I think it's good to be hard on yourself, but at some point you got to move forward.
What did you learn from that film, especially with the interception? Kyle was talking about a miscommunication on the protection. What did you see from that play, and what did you kind of learn from that?
Yeah, those are just little details that I was talking about, just me getting the protection set and everything like that, and I think it'll just make everything much easier.
You haven't had Trent Taylor out there, George Kittle. Not having those guys, how does that affect you? I mean, you obviously have a good chemistry with Trent in particular.
Yeah, I think, all these receivers, all of our skill players on offense, I got good relationships with all of them, and I have confidence in all of them. And I think it's just some of that takes time, especially with the newer guys, the younger guys, and I think that just comes naturally over time. You can't really press that too much and make it fake. You want it to be real. So I think that stuff will come with time. Those guys are whoever's injured, and we're trying to get them back as soon as possible, and we'll go from there.
With a different center in now, not Weston, does that take time as well in this scheme? Because I know the center does have a lot of communication responsibility.
No, I thought Ben's been doing a great job. He's very, very clear with everything. We really haven't had any miscommunications between the two of us so far, and he's done a great job. But those guys up front have done a phenomenal job for me, and I appreciate them.
Kyle said he has goals for you in mind just in terms of how much you play and what he wants to see from you. What do you want to accomplish what do you want to see from yourself in that game on Saturday?
I think just go out there and execute. As an offense, like I said, get us into a good rhythm, get the ball moving down the field, and just kind of string good plays together, one after another. I think that's what it's ultimately all about as an offense, is just consistently going out there and executing.
Where you at health-wise, Jimmy? Did you have to do anything differently after the game, and any other nicks or twists or anything like that?
No, I really didn't get hit too much, so I felt pretty good. Knee's holding up well, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, that's.
Jimmy, as noted, there's like a mild hysteria over a preseason game here, but I mean, you've seen remember when Brady had a bad game Monday night against the Chiefs, and it was like, well, he's kind of done now. Week to week or day to day, things can change about perception.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you learn from that from watching? Not that Brady had tons of awful games, but he was
pretty good.
I guess he wasn't immune from that. I don't know. Does that experience help you kind of put things in perspective a little?
Yeah, kind of. It's one of those things that you could react two ways to it. You could, crumble up and kind of go into a fetal position and surrender, or you could go out and fight. And, we got a locker room full of guys that want to fight. And, myself included, it's just every day you have to come in and earn your spot. And I think it's never going to be given to you, so you got to come earn it.
Couple more? No more?
What is it about Jordan Matthews? Kyle said Jordan Matthews had a hell of a camp. What about his camp was so good?
Well, I mean, it being his first year and coming in and learning as quickly as he did, just, our receivers, they're asked to do a lot of tough things, blocking in the run game, details on routes, motions, all that stuff, and he's done a good job picking up quickly. I mean, he's one of the first guys in, last guys out, and he works as hard as anyone I've ever seen, so you got to tip your hat to him on that.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.